feel it kind of bottom out, and then just What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are in the shop today. We're going to be doing a fun little project on my brand new 2023 Ford Bronco Wildtrak with the Haas 3.0. Real quick backstory, this is Bronco number 2 for me. I'm a Team Bronco ambassador, which means Ford provides me a Bronco to go out and have fun with and share all my adventures and experiences with you. And in the process, I get to install a bunch of cool parts through some of my existing partners and also obviously through Ford. So that being said, you probably clicked on this video because you're either just bought your ARB Twin compressor, or maybe you're considering buying one, and or maybe you just want to know how to install yours if you've got it. Ford Performance Parts and ARB have come together to create a literally drop-in bolt-on kit that is engineered specifically for the 6th generation Bronco. Adding this thing is about 21 pounds, this by itself. So when you add any sort of weight under your hood or anywhere in your vehicle, you need to make sure that it is engineered to be there and handle the dynamic load of your vehicle being off-road and shaking that additional weight. So there's a ton of bracketry involved in this kit to make sure that that is bolted securely underneath your hood. Not going to have any long-term issues with it down the line. I will be adding an Apex Designs 20-foot hose reel in the rear of my Bronco and plumbing it to it. That will be in a separate video, but I do want to show you that, just kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing with my setup. Onboard air can accommodate several different things. Some people use them for lockers, some people use them for air tools. I'm solely using it to air my tires back up. That is it. So that is my main focus, and I'm trying to keep it as streamlined as possible. That way that process is as fast as possible when I need to use it. I will be installing a pressure switch on the compressor. So literally all I gotta do is just run my hose to a wheel, hook it on, it'll automatically air up and stop when it's at the proper threshold. So having to carry, you know, an extra inflator and gauge, all that stuff, just null and void. I won't need to do none of those things. So, okay, after you get all of your parts and stuff opened up on a table, it's always a good practice to make sure you're not missing anything in your kit. The last thing you want to do is get halfway through an install and realize you're missing a crucial piece of the process and be stopped. So it looks like I have everything here. I'm going to kind of glance through the instructions real quick. You know how guys are. I don't need the instructions. However, this looks to be like a pretty lengthy install. There's 41 steps. So yeah, we'll definitely be referring back to these, I'm sure, several times. But I'm going to go ahead and start opening up the hood and kind of see what we need to do to get this thing put in there. So the compressor essentially is going to sit right here. So we do got to relocate some things and some hardware underneath this area, and then it gets bolted to a new bracket that came with the kit. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of find out what I need to remove and take off. All right, step one, we are gonna be having to unplug some electrical components on the other side of the engine bay. So just to be safe, I always like to disconnect the battery. That way there's no risk of just shorting something out or whatever. So we're just gonna pull the negative battery terminal off the battery, just killing power throughout everything, and then we'll start unplugging some stuff on the other side. Okay, first step in this process is going to be to disconnect the DLCM over here on this, basically this computer box right here. So we're going to disconnect it. Then we're going to remove this little clip on that harness. Use a clip remover tool to do so. These two 8mm bolts off. And then we're just going to remove this whole computer off the side of this thing here. Then there's one clip in the bottom of it. Okay, the next step in this process, the instructions say to remove the back portion of the fender liner. Got these nifty little Ford clips that, be careful because these things are usually like a one-time only use. They do not like to be taken off and on. Alright, so we're just gonna pop that out of the way. Alright, so I'm holding the camera, so hopefully it's not too shaky, but this clip comes off and gets discarded. and that's what holds the main harness right here. So I'm about to pull this thing off, and then we go back in with one of the brackets that comes with the kit, and we'll start getting the compressor mounted up. All right, so next step is we're gonna install one of the brackets that comes with the kit. This is the one that you will be installing. It goes in between the windshield washer reservoir spout and the coolant overflow tank. And then this little tab, hopefully you guys can see this in the video, this little tab will face rear. So in order to do that, there's a 13 millimeter painted bolt. Hopefully this stuff is out of your way. 13 millimeter painted bolt right here on the main core support that basically comes off, and that's what bolts this on. So we're gonna pull that bolt off real quick. I'm using a 13 millimeter swivel socket. So we'll pull that. This will go in that hole, and then that mounts in its place. Loosely mounted, so don't tighten it down all the way. All right, the next step is kind of hard to explain because the instructions are, to be honest with you guys, they're really dark pictures, so it's really hard to tell what it's asking to do. On the firewall, so coolant reservoir tank right here, move the camera. On the firewall, there's this bracket, so that's a 10 millimeter nut on a stud that comes out of the firewall, and then this bracket is what holds the fender liner. So this bracket needs to come off, and then we will be sliding the tube portion of the mount in that location. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that 10 millimeter stud, pull this little bracket off, and there's a new bracket that holds the fender liner, but that's where that tube will mount. So let me get that done, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. Now I know why they want the fender liner removed, because that bolt is easier to get to from the bottom. So that will explain that. All right, the next step, this tube is gonna slide down. This will go over that stud. So this is kind of what it'll look like on the firewall. So I'm gonna slide that down in there. And if you reach through the fender liner, you get a lot more support to grab that thing. And then put that 10 millimeter nut back on that stud. Okay, the next part of this process is kind of complicated, and it's honestly really hard to tell you guys on camera just because there's no way to get a camera down in there. But that main tube support gets mounted to the firewall, but this nutsert has to be slid in from the back so this bolt can go in there. In the instructions, it shows how to bend this, so I had to, bend this the way it's supposed to be. I know this is probably super complicated on video, and I feel like I'm not doing you guys justice by installing tips and tricks, but I'm just going off what the instructions say. Anyway, this goes behind the firewall. There's a bracket back there. This goes through the tube. So now I've got to snake this in the back. The nutsert that I was just talking about is going to slide into that little cavity right here. There's the tube right there. Sorry, I'm doing this with one hand, so bear with me, guys. That tube mounts to the firewall there. There's a metal bracket here. That nutsert slides in behind that, and then that 10 millimeter, I forgot what size it is, but that bolt goes through that tube and then attaches to this. So this is how you can see a little bit better idea what I'm talking about through the fender well on the side here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll reconvene once I've got that bolt nut locked down. This is what that looks like. So this is the nutsert that goes behind that bracket, and you can see back there, there's that larger bolt comes with the kit. This factory stud is already there. So the bracket slides over that stud, and then you add the additional bolt, nutsert, and that's what fastens that tube against the firewall there. This bracket will go like that, and then the nut goes back on, and this is what the fender liner bolts to. Very tight in here. This is honestly probably the hardest part of the process as far as mounting the brackets go. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock all this down and then move back up to the top. This goes behind the main core support here. So once you're looking under your hood, there's a tube or beam that goes basically from the firewall all the way to the front core support. This has got to go behind that, so you got to snake that in, and then this basically clamps onto that. The reason this is so vital is because this and the one that we just mounted to the firewall supports the main weight of that compressor. That compressor is 20 pounds, and if it sits out on a ledge, that's a lot of load. So that core support is the main structure on the nose of the Bronco, which is why this clamps to that. So there's some relief cuts cut in here, so when it clamps on, it's got pressure, so it can't move or shake or vibrate. But very crucial mounting point here. So we're gonna slide that behind the fender, like so, and then that's gonna go front of that. Very tight working environment. Well, that's not good. So once you've snaked that bracket behind the core support, the front bracket will just kind of clamp over. This is what it would look like after you get that all routed in there. Everything is still all loose mounted right now. Once I get the top bracket mounted, then I'll snug everything back up. But that's what it looks like after you get that in there. Kind of challenging. It was helpful to put my hand in underneath the fender liner from the bottom down there. So just a little tip. And yeah, this is kind of a lengthy process, to be honest with you guys. So a lot of bracketry. All right, the next step is going to be to remove this computer from its original bracketry. So don't need that anymore. All right, so the next step, we're gonna take the compressor, flip it upside down. All the wires and harnesses will face your body, and then the plates will look like this. So the curved edges will go down, and then the computer gets mounted on the bottom. So we're only going to utilize one bolt here to hold the computer on at first. The other two bolts will actually incorporate into the compressor mount itself. So it's going to be essentially like so. Next step, we're going to mount the computer, the plate, and the compressor all in one unit. I'm going to be using some blue thread locker on all of those bolts. Again, there's a lot of vibration transferred through here. So once I get this all fastened down, I already have the bolts where I want them, but I will show you where the locations are after I get these secured. Now that all the hardware has Loctite, I'm going to kind of show you the placement of the bolts. I'll let you pause the video here. You can kind of see exactly how this is mounted. So bracket will kind of curve down towards compressor, and then the manifolds will be on this side as well, and then kind of tilting it down, you can see the bolt hole locations because there's a lot of holes here. So essentially 1, 2, 3 onto this side of the compressor, 1, 2 onto that side of the compressor. This one goes through the computer and just mounts to the plate without touching the compressor. So that is how your bolts will look. So again, I'll pause the video so you can kind of see, or you can pause the video, you can see where it's mounted at. Now this is all one assembly. This is what it looks like. Now we can drop this in the brackets and fasten this down. We're gonna go ahead and mount the manifold. So the bracket, once you've got that manifold mounted, this is gonna go on the outside of the other bracket. So now that the compressor is 100% mounted, you can see I'm shaking the whole Bronco from the compressor. So that is not going anywhere. That is rock solid. 3 different super strong structural mounting points. Now the next step is the fun part, electrical. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the harness and get that all plumbed up. I'll run the little hose to the manifold, and then, yeah, so let's go ahead and get that done. So we're gonna insert the quarter pneumatic fitting, I don't know what these things are called, but anyway, I'm gonna insert these into the manifold. Put this fitting on your compressor. Same thing, you don't have to like crazy over tighten these. You'll feel it kind of bottom out. And then just, you know, good little umpity ump right there. Now, you're going to take your hose and go from compressor, and then same thing, just going to snug them down. This doesn't have to be overly tight. That looks beautiful. Okay, so power wires ran, plugged in there, and then it kind of just routes up the firewall on the computer, zip tied along that main back harness there, all the way around. And then when it comes into this side, comes in back behind here. So that is it right there. It's going underneath the fuse box. Underneath here, comes up, and then crimped on here. Got bolted the leads into one copper terminal, and it's pressed together, heat shrunk and soldered. And then using this power bar bolt here, and then the negative lead, same thing. Copper terminal, heat shrunk and soldered right there. So the power is totally hidden. At a quick glance under the hood, you would think there was nothing aftermarket there, with the exception of the compressor itself. It looks very stock, which is my main goal. I hate crap and wires under the engine compartment. I absolutely despise that stuff. So try to keep it as clean as possible. So the only thing left to do is just hook up the switch. You're going to use the last little harness that has these four male connectors here on the end. The only ones you need to use are the purple and the black. This is where your 12 volt will go in for the purple. Obviously you're going to ground the black one. I'm not going to be utilizing the switch under hood. I'm going to be tapping into the factory auxiliary switches up in the other side corner of the engine bay. That way switch number 6 from inside the cab will kick the compressor on, and then I will have air plumbed from here to the back of the Bronco. That way I never have to open the hood. So that way if I roll up to the side of a road, hit the switch up top, compressor kicks on, I go to the back, air up, and then keep moving. I'm also going to be using some expanded wire loom, or I forgot what this is actually called. Expandable sleeving is what they call this. So it's like a nylon kind of mesh wire loom. So again, it gives it a really nice, clean factory look. It was already electrical taped, but again, just if wires rubbing on something, it's just less risk of it getting through the wire and then causing a short or something not working down the line. Again, reliability is very important, so that way you never have to worry about your stuff not working correctly. So a little bit more time involved, but it's worth it in the end. Alrighty, like I said a while ago, because I want to use auxiliary switch number 6, I don't remember what color wires under the front corner go to switch number 6. So the way you're going to find that out, in case you did not know, features on your system here, owner's manual, search auxiliary switches. You can just type in, not even the whole thing, it usually finds it. What are the auxiliary switches? Locating the auxiliary switch wiring. So identifying the auxiliary switch wiring, here we go. So this is what we need. Auxiliary switch number 6 is the yellow and orange, which is a 10 amp. And if you did not know this, switch 1, 30, switch 2 is a 15 amp, and then the last 4 are 10 amps. So auxiliary switch number 6 is the yellow and orange. So we're going to come to the front of the vehicle. And what we're looking for is this harness here. These are all of your auxiliary switch outputs. Did not know that. There is one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, 6. Sorry. So you got a brown and a white, purple, and then I think that's solid yellow actually, blue, and it's hard to see through the camera, but yellow and orange. This is what we're looking for right there. So we're just going to pull this wire out of that. Actually, I'm going to leave it in there. I'm trying to keep it as factory as possible. So I'm just going to tap in right there. So this is what we're going to power the compressor with, is this right here. So once you hit that switch inside number 6, this will kick that on. So I'll attach this to my purple wire on the ARB harness, and then I'm just gonna ground it right here on this factory ground, and then that will kick the compressor on. So let's go ahead and get that wiring done. So I wanted to show you guys, what it looks like utilizing switch number 6. Again, that is the yellow and orange. So again, that purple wire is just tapped into this. This is your 12 volt. This is a heat shrink soldering splice here with a waterproof connector. My heat gun is nowhere to be found, so I use the old school lighter, so don't judge me. But anyway, and then the negative, same thing, copper terminal, heat shrink. There's and then that's just right here on this factory ground. So factory ground, all of your 6 auxiliary switch harnesses, switch wires are there, tapped in there, and then I'm just gonna run this, which is what it looks like on the other end, to the compressor, and this kicks the compressor on. You can kind of see the expandable sleeve that I put on it, just to kind of give it a very clean factory look. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and wire this across to the other side. You can see also a little better, where I tapped in the 12 volt ground, and one last kind of across, so you guys can see that all the way across there, zip tied up nice and pretty, and then plugged into the compressor. So again, quick glance, looks nice and stock. Mission accomplished, ladies and gentlemen. We have onboard air. I haven't even tested it yet. So compressor's mounted, brackets are mounted, everything is nice and fastened. It's secured the way it's supposed to be. Power wire is ran, switch wire is ran, tapped into auxiliary switch number 6. Super clean, you can't see there's any, it just doesn't look like there's a bunch of rat's nests of wires everywhere. So a moment of truth, let's go try this thing out. Okay, here we go. I'm not gonna turn it on, I'm just gonna hit auxiliary. Oops, my bad. All right, full auxiliary power, switch number 6. Woo-hoo! We've got air, baby! So technically I'm not 100% done. I still have to run an air hose from the manifold here to the rear of the Bronco, where I will be using my Apex Designs hose reel. So this will give you an idea how big it is. Palm of my hand. So essentially what I got to do is plumb into this quarter MPT pneumatic fitting to the manifold there in the compressor, and then run that to the rear of the Bronco, and then I'll be done. But the most significant part of this install is now complete. Compressor is under the hood. It's all wired in the way it's supposed to be, using the factory Ford Bronco auxiliary switch number 6, which I just love that Ford did stuff like that. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like the video. Hopefully I put this together well enough so you guys can follow along. If you do installs, you know that like putting a camera every single step, it's very time consuming. And so hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, looking forward to sharing with you guys a ton of stuff that's going to be going in this truck. I don't know if every single video will be a how-to. This one just had a lot of steps involved, so I figured it'd be worth sharing with you guys. But the next couple of videos might be more of just like a cinematic like montage of just installing a lot of parts. So anyway, we'll see you in the next one. The next video will probably be bumpers. See you guys next time.